Does it record? Yes, it is recording. Then you can follow us on GitHub, and here we have a repository where you can find all the code relative to this course. So we have quite a few repositories, but ooh, okay, looks like the URL doesn't exist anymore. Let me check. Course frontend, static frontend. Yeah, my bad. Here, this is the correct one. Correct link. Yeah. And as I said, join the Slack. So yeah, Visual Studio, if you go here to Visual Studio, a second. So Visual Studio, if you go to, this is tool from the Microsoft, and let me check the downloads. Probably not Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code. For some reason, Microsoft likes to name everything with the same name. So Visual Studio Code, you can download it. Because I'm using Mac, that is why it's saying that download for Mac, but you have Windows and Linux, depends on what you use. So yeah, please install this one. And yeah, so basically today, all you need is just VS Code. Let me just quickly open a terminal, create a folder for the lesson. Static front end. Oh. Okay, here. CD static event. So I'm just opening the just created the new folder so I can show you some examples. This is VS Code, right? So this is your code editor. You don't need a terminal for this course because we don't write any. Yeah, it is free. So Lester VS Code is free. You don't need a terminal. Normally, but if you're working as a developer or you're working with JavaScript or Node.js or whatever, or any other language, programming language, you want to have a terminal. But for we don't need it because we don't do anything with the terminal. So you can easily create a new file by clicking just new file, and for us that will be index.html, right? So we have HTML file. This is pretty much it, and yeah, so that shouldn't be a problem for you. If you have troubles with downloading, installing this tool, please let me know in Slack. I will help you to do that and instruct you how to do that. Also, VS Code has quite a few plugins that I strongly suggest you to install. But we probably will talk about that a bit later because for now you don't really need many. Yeah, you don't really need many. Do we leave our question on Slack to meet and greet channel? So meet and greet is about just saying who you are, why you're learning programming, and what is your ultimate goal in programming. Basically, it's basically present yourself to everyone. And normally we use general channel to ask about any questions. We also have quite a few channels like, let me actually show you. Sorry, I will open my Slack, bring it here. So yeah, we have the general channel. We also have Code Clinic if you need one, but probably it depends. It doesn't matter. You can ask your questions in general or Code Clinic. We also have jobs where we're posting potential jobs that you might be interested in. if you're looking for one. Mostly those are just for like juniors, etc. Yep, this is pretty much it about Slack. Oh, wait, one more second. I will remove my Slack from here. Back to code editor. Yeah, again, if you have any questions, we are always in Slack, so do not hesitate to ask your questions there. So, what is HTML? Anyone? What it stands for? Anyone? Hypertext Markup Language. Thank you, Lester. Exactly. So this is not actually programming language, right? So this is just build the markup of your page for the browser. So there is nothing about programming, it's just a markup. And yeah, so here, hypertext markup language. So you might saw a lot of memes in the internet that people saying that HTML is programming language, but yeah, it's not. So the very basic document structure that you need, where you need to start, is this one. So I will, by the way, you might ask about slides. So I will share the slides in the end of the lesson here in the channel. I actually can do it now. Yeah, let me share it now so you don't need to wait. Get view. So here's the slides for our presentation. So yeah, doc type HTML, the very first tag, which means that you need to basically specify for browser, because browser will read your document, and you specify that this is an HTML page, HTML file, so please treat it as HTML file. Next up is HTML tag, where you basically have everything for your page. So everything is wrapped by HTML tag. And inside that tag, you have two main tags, head and body. So with head, you're leaving kind of instructions and some additional information for the browser about your page. So the browser can understand what they need to do. Here you might want to have a link to some fonts, to your CSS files, etc., and some extra details. And also the only thing that you will see from head tag is a title, because title is something that you can see here in the tab name. So in our case, if I open, let me go here, and what do I want to do is just open index.html. So let me just close it here and sorry, wrong browser. Yeah, so it is empty, right? Because we have an empty file. That is why it is empty. Right? So yeah, let's start actually and create this very basic one. But you have a head where you leave instructions for your browser, what needs to be done. And in body, you have everything that should be rendered or presented to your user in your browser. So everything, if you want something to show to the user, you put it into the body tag. This is a whole wrapper where you will put everything you want to write, all tags and layouts that you want to render. So with VS Code, it's very nice because it has autocomplete. So you don't need manually to type like doc type HTML. So you don't need to do something like doc type HTML, and then you don't need to create HTML tag, and then you want to have like head. You don't need to do everything manually. VS Code allows you just put exclamation mark, hit tab, and you have a default template for your HTML page. So now, see the title is a document, but let's name it static front end. So I save this page, this file, go to my browser, refresh, and now you can see my title is here, right? Static front end. So this is the only thing that you will see in the browser from the head tag. The rest should go to the body. Yeah. So here we have a few explanations basically where you can read again after the lesson. You can read about each tag, what it does. So HTML is a root element. As you can see, this is a top level element, right? And everything, as I already said, goes inside the HTML tag. Yeah, again, head, you can read about head, what is that, about what meta tag does, what title does, and body as well. And let's actually, so you can read this after the lesson. But I want to talk about actual HTML structure and about HTML elements. So this is the example of typical HTML tag. So we have opening tag. For example, in our case, this is P because I'm creating a paragraph in this case. So this is opening tag where you have angle bracket, the name of the tag. So this is a name of your tag. Then you have a closing bracket. Then you have a content. Then you have a closing tag where you also put in your name of your tag that you want to close. But before it, you have a forward slash. And the whole thing, we call it element, HTML element or element. So if I want to create a tag here, what I need to do is basically, again, it just VS Code use autocomplete. And if I do, Slack is no longer active. Yeah, you probably don't use it. Can you try, Eve, can you try the link that I just sent? Sorry for the interruption. Let me send it again. This one. That should work. Yeah, so again, see that VS Code just try to autocomplete everything it can basically. So if I do angle bracket P and closing bracket, it automatically create a closing tag, right? Because it understands that it should be closed. And let's say hello. So I just created an HTML element P with content hello. So if I go back to my browser, refresh, I can see my hello here, right? And you can in DevTools, in an inspect, you can see your P element here inside body, right? As we created it inside body, you can see it there in developer tools. So this is the typical HTML tag. We have quite a few, and I'll show you all of them. I'll show you a list of tags that you can create, how they use, etc., and how you did and when you want to use them. Elements. Each element potentially can have an attribute. We call it attribute, and attributes can be very different. So the very common, I would say, attribute is class. So you want to somehow select your elements with CSS, and this is it might not make sense now why you need classes, why you might need IDs, etc. We will talk about that a bit later in the course, but you can add some attributes to every element. And with those attributes, you can do different things. You can use them as a selectors, to find elements on the page for CSS, to make some stylings, to do something with these elements. You can use them to get data from there. You can use for JavaScript, which we're not talking about during this course. But yeah, this is the whole point, that you can add some attributes that might be useful for you later. And for example, here, I can just do class equals, I don't know, title or something like that. And it doesn't change anything here. So as you can see, the text is still the same. But in your DevTools, you can see that you have a class title, right? Also, the next thing that I just said that when you open in the tag, you need to close it. But we have a few tags that we call self-closing tags. Can you please bump up screen display? You mean make it bigger, Lester? Or let me try. Oh, wait a sec. Sorry, I want to make it slightly brighter. So you mean here, I believe, and here. Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, by the way, if I need to tweak something on my side, again, don't be shy, just tell me. I just used 32-inch screen. That is why for me it is okay, but for you it might be just too big, too small, sorry. That is why, yeah, just tell me. Okay, yeah, so we have our title, right? The next thing that I just mentioned is that we want to, we have self-closing tags. And that means that some tags, they don't require the closing tag. One of these elements, actually two here, we have image and we have input. So image is self-explanatory, right? When you want to add an image, you just create an image tag, provide the address to your image, and alt is a description of your image. If for any reason, if you can't load your image, you will see the text. What is that image supposed to be? So let's actually try to do that. Let's add some image, and I don't have any local images. So theoretically, I can just go to, I don't know, images, kittens, right? Let's make our lesson nice. So let's go to Google, find, do we want to vote? Which kittens do we want to render? Let's take a few, right? So I'm just copying here, save link, copy link address, right? All I need is a URL to this image. And I hope this is the correct URL. No, it's not. So let me copy image address. Yeah, that's the one. So I'm pasting it here, right? In a source attribute. Again, this is attribute, which we just talked about. And we will say 3 kittens. Yeah, save. And let's go to our browser. Refresh. Ooh, we have our kittens. A bit big, but we have them. We can resize them with CSS, and we will get that. We will get there, and you will see how we can do that. But yeah, this is how we are adding a kitten, kittens, not a kitten, the image to the website. The next one is input, right? No worries, sir. Porky. Okay, yeah. So the next one is input. Any ideas what input does? Why we might use input tag? What it does? What we will see on the page if you have an input? Anyone? Yep. User, we can collect a user input. So you basically have a kind of yeah, I don't know the alternative word for that, but if I add input, we will see a box here, right? Let me just comment out our image for a sec, because I just want to see my input. Yeah, so this is our input. here the user can provide something to you. And this is just an input tag, just a simple input tag. And again, see that this tag, you don't need to have something like input because it is invalid, right? This tag is self-closing tag. So all you need to do is put / before the closing bracket. You also might see that, okay, I definitely saw in the internet that we can have some text inside, like a placeholder, right? And you can do that by adding attribute placeholder and put whatever text you want, like first name, let's say, right? Refresh. And you have this placeholder. So when I click and start typing, it will disappear, but it's already highlighting you something. So you're adding this information with just attributes, right? Okay, yeah. So here you have a link, you can find a link about self-closing tags, the full list. And from that list, I believe that in real life, I'm using image and input, potentially. Meta, yeah, image and input. This is it. Nothing else. But yeah, this is the full list, if you're interested. So back to HTML tags. We have quite a few. We have more than that. But these are the most popular tags. And you will use them a lot when you will build your pages. We have semantic tags and regular tags, and we will talk about what is the difference. But for now, they are the same for you. So we have header tag, which is just extra meaning that you want to say that, okay, this is my header. We have div tag, which is probably the most popular tag in HTML. Let me actually Google HTML, the most popular tag. Do you think this is the same? Document structure, content container, most commonly used tags. Head, body, yeah, of course, because this is default. Okay, H1P. Okay, this is the whole thing. I saw that they have a, oh yeah, we have top 10 tags. Look at us. Okay. Yeah, so div is in top 5, let's say. Yeah. As I said, it is very popular. So div, basically, it's a division. So you're creating a box where you want to group some elements. So let's say if I have a few elements, let me just remove these two. We don't need it. I have a title H1. So hello friend. And I want to group a few p tags, a few paragraphs into one thing, like div. I will add class, I don't know, details. And here I will have p text 1, and I will create another p with text 2, and let me copy paste and just change to 3, save, and I have this separate group. So visually you can't see that division because you don't have any stylings for this box. But if you go here to DevTools, you see that this is actually one element, and inside that element you have a few more. So you can move them all together. This is one section. Because if I copy paste it, again, here there is no difference, but in your DevTools you can see that they are just two separate things. And let's say we will talk about CSS because it's more important for CSS, but I can set, I want to have some gap on the bottom, so I will set like margin bottom, I don't know, 20 pixels. let's say to make more visual, 50 pixels. See that now I have a gap. So the whole group has been moved because I added this spacing to the whole element, to the group of elements. So we just added to this one. That is why you basically use it. This is the main reason why you're using wrappers, because you want to move your content or group your contents on the page or move together, etc. That is why you're creating this extra wrappers that is not visible on the page, but it allows you to group your elements, move, style, etc. very easily. Yes. Footer is another, it's basically the div with a meaning. So you want to say that footer means that I want to put this element on the very bottom of my page. This is a footer. P tag, as I said, just a regular text. P element, this is paragraph. From H1 to H6, so we have H1, H2, H3, H4, and H6. These are elements for heading. So you might see that because I put H1, my title actually has bold font weight, right? And it is bigger by default. I didn't do any stylings. It's already bold and bigger. This is because it's heading. And if I create, I will show you some magic. H. Do you think it's possible? I think it's possible. I haven't tried. Multiply 6. Yes, it is possible. Beautiful. Look at this magic. Item or heading. $. I'll explain what I'm doing later. So I'm just removing this, multiplying, and I have 6 different headers. H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, right? So we don't have any stylings, like 0 stylings, because I haven't done any CSS. But if I refresh, see that all of them are different. This is the default styling from your browser. So yeah, that is why you might want to, in one instance, you want to use heading H1 or H2 or H3 or 4 or 5 or 6. It always depends on your case and what you want to render. You also can style them differently. So I can have H1, but I can completely change it with CSS, because CSS just change the representation, the design of your element. But yeah, so this is just a default styling, but you can change it with CSS. UL, any guess what UL does? What it stands for? Unordered list. Thank you, Jasmine. You're right. So this is an ordered list. An ordered list means that you have a list of, again, I will do some magic. So I want to have an ordered list means that you have a list of similar items inside. It doesn't matter what it can be. It can be just text, or when you want to list a list of animals, or you want to list a few cards. But that should be the idea behind, is that this is a group of similar elements with different data. So the friend, I would say the child for UL is ally, which is list item. And if you put list item inside, I would say item 2, 1, let's say, and maybe 2. I'm just copying 3. And if I refresh, you can see that by default I have these dots, right? So I can create something like H3 animals, and here I will have cat, dog, and I don't know, rabbit. Refresh, and see that you have a list of something, and you have these dots. Again, this is default styling that coming from your browser, and here you can inspect and see your list items. So this is an ordered list. OL is for ordered list. So if I just change to OL, I will get an order. So if I refresh this page, now I have 1, 2, 3. Again, this is a native behavior of these items, of these tags. So if you want to have an ordered list, you just use OL. If you want to have an ordered list, you just using UL, unordered list. So form is a button. Form is a group, basically is a wrapper for your input elements. As one we already discussed, it's just input, but form is a wrapper. So again, if you go here, let's create a form tag. By default, it has action attributes. We probably don't need it for now. But I can create an input with placeholder name, an input with age. And here the age, we potentially expect a number, right? So for now, if I refresh, I can type anything like Alex. And I can type again Alex, right? Which is not what we want. We actually want to have a number, right? So what we can do, let me just make it capital. We can change type to number. And by default, again, browser, see that now if I start typing characters, it doesn't register them. And also you have arrows, which means that you can actually set with arrows, or you can just type 25, right? And again, this is only because you have type number. Also, you might ask how to create drop downs. And we have another element, which is select. And again, it has name, like, I don't know, animal. Let's say I want to create a label. This is like a description for the tag, and spellings. Where's the spelling? Come on. What I'm missing? Anyone see the spelling? No? Favorite animal. I don't know. It's highlighting me that it doesn't know this word. Have no clue. Okay, favorite animal. And we have a select, right? And in your select, you want to have options. So the same as you have for your for UL, I don't know. The same as you have for unordered lists, you have allies as children. Here for select, you have options. So you have option, and you can set cat, and here you can put a value cat. Then you can change to dog, and let's say dog, and don't forget about our rabbit, right? Rabbit. So we have 3 options. So now if we refresh, we have a drop down, right? So we can select the from the drop down. Create kittens. Yeah. So option, as I said, we have option for as a child of select. Another thing is that we can have a button. This is another tag like submit. And we have a submit button. So if I refresh, we can submit our form. So you might notice that when I click submit, it will refresh my page. Yeah, so it just refreshed my page. This is how it works. So this is a button tag. And again, it just to be more semantic, you have a form, you want to have a button, you can add type and say submit. And also let's create another button, reset, because we have another type which is reset. So now if I go back, so here, right, I can put some data, I don't know, Alex. Here I will put like 25, and if I click reset, it will just clear my form, right? So let's actually let's add some default option, like select a favorite animal, okay? And by default, we will make it disabled, so you can't select this element, because now if I refresh the page, you can select cat, but you can select the favorite animal, right? But we can make it disabled. So if I refresh, yeah, selected. I want to make it selected by default. So refresh. You have selected the favorite animal, but see that it is disabled. So I can't click it. And if I select a dog, I can't click on select a favorite animal. So again, Alex 25. And when I click reset, it clear everything. But if I click submit, 25, oh, sorry, Siri. And if I select dog, click submit, I'm actually refreshing the page because I'm submitting the form. This is a default behavior of forms. When you click submit, it will try to reset the page. And we will talk about that, why it's happening later in the course. Another one is A, which is anchor. And this is how you create links. So I can add an anchor element, which will go to HTTPS, let's say google.com. And I will name it go to Google. So if I go back to my page, refresh, sorry, I can actually click, see that when I hover on this element, I see that down below in the very left bottom corner, I can see the URL where it wants to go. So if I click it, it will navigate me to Google, right? So yeah, basically this is how you create anchors. You also can create, imagine that you have a second page, about page, .html, right? And I'll name it about. And I have h1 with hello, or just about page, about page, right? This is all I have. I want to get to that about page somehow. So you can do that easily by just adding forward, because they are in the same level. I will just put // and my VS Code already highlighting me my options. So I will put about page, and here I will just change to about page, for example. So if I refresh, I have about page. So if I click, it will go to about page, right? And if I want to be able to go back, here I will just do index.html. Yeah, and I will call it homepage, for example. So now refresh, I have a homepage, right? So I click homepage, I'm going back to my main. If I click to about page, I'm going to about page. So now I have a navigation, and you basically now you can create some static but already a website with multiple pages, so you can navigate between pages. So that is why we use anchors, to navigate to external links like Google or any other website, whatever you want, or navigate between your pages that you have for your website with internal links. You also can use anchors to navigate within the page, but we will talk about that a bit later in the course, because you don't need to worry about this for now. So anchors, this we use anchors for links. And one more is span. Span is just basically an element that doesn't change your layout, but you can use it as a, I would say, another selector to highlight your text in any way. So let's say if you have a paragraph, you have some random, I don't know, some random text, you can wrap one word into span, and with CSS you can style it somehow, right? So you will have the whole sentence, the whole paragraph, but you can highlight your this word with stylings because you have an extra selector. You have a wrapper for this word, let's say. Yep. Any questions so far? Oh, yeah. So dot is just a convention. I can avoid this dot. I'm just saying this dot is because this is how I write it. Because if I create a folder with, I don't know, other pages, put my index inside, about inside, and I want to get to have a URL to my about, I need to have something other pages / about, right? So I'm just setting the path to my file. And yeah, you can use without dot if you want. You can have something like this. Yeah, it's just me. I just prefer to keep dot. This is just a, yeah, I don't know. I prefer it. Okay, so about attributes for anchors and images. They have quite a few. So anchor is just for, as I said, is for links, right? But you also can use anchors for emails, and that will help you to basically, this is increase the UX of your website. What I mean here is, imagine that I have another anchor. Let's say I have a p tag with email, and here I'm creating an anchor with mail to, and I don't know, support at quartersinhoods.dev, and quartersinhoods, I don't know, you can put it the whole URL, the whole email here. So now if I go to your page, refresh, I have them email, right? But if I click on that one, see that it's already saying that, do you want me to open your native email app? And if I click open mail, it will open the email app, right? And you can send email straight away. So that improves your UX for your websites, because your customers or your users can click on the URL and that will open their native app. This is especially important for mobile support, because it's very convenient to click on the link and that will open your app and you can straight away write your message and send the email. Yeah. Another one is specify tel, which you might guess is for phone numbers. So let me just copy this, name it phone, put some +44 and a few numbers, and that should be tel. And here I will just again do the same, just to show the user. So again, you might notice that on some websites, especially again when you're on mobile, it's very annoying when you go there and you want to call them and they have just a regular text, the plain text on the website. And it is annoying. You just need to select the phone number, then copy it, then go to your dialer, paste it and call. Very annoying. But if they use semantic tags and if they use the HTML functionality, they can add tell. So when you're on their website and click on this one, it will automatically, so for me it's suggesting to open FaceTime because I'm on my desktop. But on a mobile device, it will automatically open the dialer with that phone number, which is super convenient. I really appreciate the websites that they implement this thing, because this sometimes it is insane just to copy pasting and navigating between windows. So tell is another attribute, param, let's say, for attribute. So we have target blank, which means that you can open your URL in a new page. Oh, no. So plus, yeah, sorry, thank you. So plus is just a part of the number, because this is international code, right? So +44 is the UK. You can do +1 because this is United States. Or if you want to use local, of course, you don't need this plus. But potentially, if the customer is from the other country, you might want to have the proper phone number. That is why you have plus. Yeah, so download means that you imagine that you have a URL to some PDF. Let's actually find it. I'll show you the difference. PDF file. Let's go and find some PDF in the internet. I'm just thinking, where can we find PDF file? Article PDF. Where is this? Anyone? Come on, I truly believe that we can find. My goodness. Research. Okay, I think they have some PDFs. Did they? Okay, they suggesting us to download. Now we want to find a way where we can open PDF. Any suggestions where we can find PDF? Government website. Okay. Yeah. Go UK PDF. Documents. Nah, not really. Still. Come on. Oh yeah. Woohoo. Yeah, it's suggesting us to download. Let me just change there. Actually, by the way, this is another trick that you can. Ooh, thank you, Mika. Perfect. Yeah, so here, so we have alternate side parking rules. Beautiful. This is what we need. So imagine that you have this URL, right? So if I paste it here, create another anchor, and I will do the URL to this, some PDF file. I'll call it PDF, or I don't know, rules. Save, go, close this, refresh. So I have my link rules, right? Let me actually just, yeah, I forgot about my P wrapper. Something like that. Refresh. I have my rules. Yeah. So when I click, it's just opening this file in the browser, right? But if I add another attribute to my anchor, which is download, as I showed it here, refresh. Is my browser protecting me from something? Give me a second. I'm just thinking, is there any chance that it is protecting? Pam pam. Why my download won't work? So let's check that. PDF download HTML attribute. That should work. Yeah. Looks for me that should work. And actually, yeah, you can specify the file name, but where is it? Sorry, I tried to find some download. No, file name. We can call it rules.pdf. Let's try again. Refresh. I want to inspect this element. Yeah, we have download. Click. For some reason, potentially my browser just blocking that. Might not. What's going on? Yeah, try yourself. Click. That's really odd. Let me check the history where we were. Okay, go UK PDF. I just want to check now. Okay, PDF. Sorry, I will just check this one. Yeah, just try to open the files now. Interesting. I think it's something with my browser. It just protecting me from downloading. I'm pretty sure that this is in my browser. Let me check if I do the same but in Safari. But Safari is in Chromium, so might has the same problems. Yeah, definitely the same problems. That's odd actually, but yeah, I don't know what's going on, but that should work. That definitely should work. I can figure it out and give you an answer in Slack why it doesn't work. And title, the title is the next one, which is, sorry, you're trying to get the download to begin immediately upon clicking the link. Yes, exactly. It just doesn't allow me, Lester, for some reason. Yeah, and the last one is a title. So title means that when you hover on something, so here now if I'm hovering, I have nothing, right? It's just nothing. But I can add titles. Sorry, it's here. For a phone, for example, I can add another attribute title, and we can have I don't know, colors in its phone number. So now if I will hover, it will show the title colors in whose phone number. Yep. So you add in more information to your links. Again, those are minor tweaks that you might not care when you start with your HTML and CSS, because it's not very important. You want to try and basically practice how to build pages. So yeah, don't think about that. For images, we have source. This is the main attribute where you specify the URL to the image or the address if you have it locally. The same as the for anchor href, same thing. It can be the URL to the other website which contains the image, or it can be your local one. It doesn't matter. Source set is an alternative to src to source, because you can specify different sizes of different images from different screen sizes, but it's too advanced for you for now. Again, you can just memorize that you can do, that you are able to do, to load more different sizes for different screens, but don't think about that too much for now. And we just use it to optimize the website, the speed of the loading speed for different devices. Because if you open in the website on your phone, you don't really care about 4K image because you have a very tiny screen. And alt is a description of your image. Yeah. So forms and inputs. Here we have all types of inputs, of input element. So you can specify type as we did here. Sorry, wrong one again. Right? Type, text, number, and we have password, email, checkbox, radio, date, color, file, and hidden. I strongly suggest you to play with those types after lesson on your own and see what is the difference, how it looks, how it handles the data that you are providing. Just create a few inputs with different types, basically with all types, all inputs with these types, and just try to see what it does and what is the difference. I bet that you will have some questions about radio. So yeah. Questions before we go to box model? No? Okay. So the box model is basically for HTML, everything is a box. So every single element is a box. And each element has margin, has border, has padding, and the content area. So without reading, when you start building your website, without seeing what area you hover in or what do you have, you don't need to check your CSS. You can see by color what it is. So if I start inspecting the element, I can see that here, let me zoom in, I have a border and I have tiny padding because it's green. That means that this is padding. This yellow is border, and you can see that this is border. And here I'm hovering on my P element and I have orange top and bottom. That means that this is margin. And you can see this here. So if I hover on the element, click, you can see that my margin is 16 and 16 pixels below, and left and right is 0, right? And the content area is the blue area. Green, which this element doesn't have padding, border, and margin. So if I can set some padding just to show you an example. Let me just add some padding. 20 pixels. 20 pixels. So now you can see that we have a green area, right? So if I hover on the element, we have green and we have orange. And without looking on your CSS, I already see that we have margin and we have padding. So that will help you. And every single element, again, is a box. Even if you style it to make look like a circle, which we can quickly do, just to show my point. So let's create div with class circle. It is empty div. You can't see it here, but I can find it here. So you can see that it has width 1180 and height 0. So I want to set that width will be 300 pixels, height will be 300 pixels, and background should be green, right? So you have green square. And if I hover on that, you can see that this is square. And we have a margin on the right? The huge orange area is margin. So, but if I set border radius to 50%, we have a circle. But if I hover, you can see that the content area is still a square, right? It's blue, And that means that this is the content area. So it's still a square. That is why we are saying that everything for HTML is a box. Because no matter how you style it, it's still the box. Yeah, and this is a default hierarchy of all layers. It's like an onion, right? Each element is an onion. You have multiple levels with different properties. Does anyone know what is the difference between padding and margin? Anyone? I bet you know, just shy. Yeah. Yep, exactly. So margin is the spacing between the element and other elements. So this is margin. And padding is a spacing between content area and the border of the element. So if you have a padding, like we have, let me just add some padding to this element. Padding 20 pixels. Let me change it to, I don't know, some blue. So now if I highlight, you can see that I have padding, and you can see that my circle covering the padding area, right? Because it's still area of the element. But margin is the spacing outside. So if I add some margin, like margin 100 pixels, margin, you can see that this is spacing to other elements, the outside elements. So yep, you're right. Thank you for your help. Yes. So next thing, in HTML, we have two types of elements. We classify basically elements into two groups. First group is block elements, and that means that they take the full width of the parent. When I'm saying parent, sorry, I keep swiping to the left. Let me put it there. So when I'm saying parent, I mean that the parent of the element, for example, for this anchor, the parent is p tag, right? And the parent for p tag is actually body, right? So for another one, option has a parent select, select has a parent form, and form has a parent body. So again, the block element takes the full width of the parent element. Even if you have just a few words, it takes the full width, right? So you have bluish background, and it takes the full width of that box, even if it has just a few characters, just a few words. On the other side, we have inline elements, and they take the area of the content. As you can see, you have two elements in the row because they are inline elements, and they take just the area that needs to be taken to render the content, for the content that they have inside. So if you add more content, that will grow. If you remove some content, that will shrink. So this is inline elements. And again, HTML and CSS, it's about playing in your mind with the tools that you potentially, with the tools you have in HTML and CSS. So you need to think with all these combinations. Okay, I have a block elements, I have inline elements, I want to group these elements, I want to separate those elements or whatever. You're always thinking with such categories, and you need to always think about the layout from the HTML perspective, because I had so many students that were coming to me with questions like, can you help me with CSS? But normally the problem is with HTML because they have a wrong layout. And I know that people who participated our courses before, or when I used to work in different boot camps, and it's the same in our boot camp, is that when you build in the layout and you have some problems with positioning of some element, that means that you have a wrong HTML structure, because it's very painful and sometimes almost impossible to put elements into right place only because the structure is wrong. And this is basically the secret of CSS. It's not CSS, it's HTML. So be careful when you build in layouts, and always think about how you want to group elements. And during this course, I will talk about that. We will do some exercises, how you want to group, how I'm suggesting you to group your elements, and how you want to approach actual page to build, how you want to approach pages, and how you want to start with them. So inline elements, they have some limitations. Not many, as you can see from this list. You can't set height, you can't set width because they are based on content. So you can't do that with CSS. And you can't set margin top and margin bottom. You still can set margin left and right, but not top and bottom. So those are limitations for inline elements. Just keep that in mind, because sometimes, again, if you have an inline element, you try to set width or height and you're like, why it doesn't work? And this is because it's inline element. Yeah. So here's somebody, I don't know who, created a periodic table of HTML elements. I have a link here, so feel free to go there and just check what it does. Or basically check all elements. Next up is a DOM. We will talk about DOM very, very, very little, like literally, I don't know, 3-5 minutes, because DOM is important for JavaScript. For you, from HTML perspective, all you need to know about DOM is that the actual code that you have here in your HTML is not what you are seeing in the browser. This is a different thing. So how it works, imagine that you're reading a book, right? And somebody asking you to tell what this book is about in details, as much as you can. Just try to remember everything and imagine that you have a great memory. So you start telling the whole story from the book and you're almost perfect, but you still fill in the gap, or you have some gaps, or you fill in the gap with some other knowledges, right? This is how the browser works. So browser takes your HTML file, the one that we've created here, read it and interpret it in own way. What? Oh, wait a second. Wait a second, my battery is dying. When everything starts lagging, I understand that my battery goes down, and yeah, wait a second. I think I plugged in. Just want to make sure. Oh my goodness, everything is lagging. Sorry. Should be better in a sec. My God. It's very laggy for me. Yeah, 2%. Power adapter, 15 minutes until fully charged. Yeah, so I think it starts charging, which is great. Yeah, so it might be laggy a bit for a few minutes, but it will become better. It will become better. So let me show you an example. What I'm saying, when the browser reads your file and try to interpret. My goodness, sorry for that. I completely forgot about the charger. When I click to select, it just started loading. This is funny. Oh god. Yeah. Ooh. Wait a second. I think it's better now. Yeah. So imagine that I'm creating a p tag, right? Hello again, as we did before. So if I refresh, I have my open tag, word, closing tag. Great. But imagine that I just forgot to put my closing tag accidentally. Yeah. Oh my god. The autocomplete just killing me because it's just adding the closing tag. Why you try to be smart? I want to make you silly. Let me just open in another code editor, just text editor at least. Yeah. Wait a second. So let me just open that. And I will modify my index file. Open with, I don't know, some text edit. Beautiful. Is there any other editors? That might be too smart as well. Okay, let me try. If I remove now, VS Code tries to be smart, so it doesn't allow me to, let me try this. Yeah, I know how. I will go wild and I will open in Vim. So terminals, they have own text editors and you can edit your code in terminal. So Vim index HTML. Now I go wild. Yeah, but I will just do that here. Thank you, Max. So now I'm just removing my p tag, right? Saving the file. So now if I read my file, I don't have the closing tag. Yeah, the closing p tag. And if I refresh the page, you can see that I have a huge gap here because the closing tag has been created by my browser. Because browser, as I said, it just read your file and try to interpret in own way your file. So it's not what you're actually seeing. Sometimes it's fixing your code, but sometimes it is breaking your code. So yeah, I mean, because the VS Code is great. So let me just don't save. If I open it, see that we don't have this p tag. But VS Code, that is why it's for beginners. I'm not sure it's like, is it a benefit or the problem? Because for beginners, it's nice to learn how to write everything manually, but you can avoid easily all these silly mistakes when you start writing your HTML, because VS Code basically help you to autocomplete everything and make sure that you're not making mistakes. Of course, it's not perfect again, especially when you start programming, like writing JavaScript, but for HTML, it tries its best to autocomplete and to not break your layout. Okay, yeah, so this is all you need to know about DOM for now. We have 2 slides here, but don't think too much. It's for JavaScript. Next stop is actually CSS. So CSS is good. So with CSS, you can do actual magic. You can do animation, you can style your components and make fabulous things. And we will have quite a few, not quite a few, but we will have some projects during this course, and we will build some actual pages, and you will see how like a just black and white text can be changed to a beautiful layout just with CSS. So when you see the sophisticated, well-designed website, it's not because of some programming crazy languages, it's just CSS. Because CSS makes things look nice. So here we have a nice slide about the kind of explanation what it does. So HTML is a skeleton, it's a mock-up, right? So markup, again, that is why it is markup language, because you build in a markup, this skeleton. JavaScript, basically the whole logic, and CSS just makes you look nice. Not sure that this guy is really nice, but you got the point. Yeah, so we have 3 ways to add CSS. First way to add CSS is inline. When I'm saying inline, I mean that you can write style equals and write your CSS here. This is the first way. Second way is to add styles tag to the head. So in your head, you can create styles, style, and start writing your CSS here. And the third way is to create a separate file for your CSS. So what you will do is basically you'll create a folder just to keep everything nice and clean, and you'll create some file inside like index CSS. And to link that to your index page, all you need to do is just put link tag in the head. So hit tab, and you just build in a path, so CSS folder and index CSS, and you linked to the CSS. So you have it now on the page. So why, sorry, like inline stylings has the highest priority, but it is very messy. I don't recommend you, and nobody, well, not just me, nobody use inline stylings in production, because you just combining HTML and CSS in one place, which is always a bad idea. The head stylings is cleaner and it saves loading time. So if you have a page that requires just a few lines of CSS, I don't know, 20, 40 lines of CSS, and the speed matters, then you want to put your CSS into HTML file. Why basically is a difference? Because what happens when you load the page, your browser gets your HTML file. It starts read your HTML, get to the point with link CSS file, and make another call to the server to give this CSS. And that is why this is where you're losing the time and increase the loading time for your page. That is why if you have your few lines of CSS here, then it works to put it inside HTML, because you'll get your CSS on the first call, because browser don't need to go anywhere else to have the CSS. But if you have a lot of CSS, when you're building basically the CSS and you building the page with a lot of CSS, you want to have separate CSS files, because you want to keep your code clean and readable. And trust me, I think this is the most important part of any programming. Keep your code readable. So yeah, for you as a suggestion, you always want to create a separate CSS file and write your CSS there. You can have multiple CSS files. Because imagine that you have a CSS file for header, right? Or for navigation bar. And when you navigate between pages, you have the same navigation bar. So you might want to have a separate file for this navigation bar and include it to every single page. So just to not repeat yourself in every single page, you just have a separate CSS file for that. So you can have just another link element tag, sorry, here with another like a, I don't know, nav styles. Let's say I don't have this file here, but all I'm saying is just I want to have a nav styles here, so I need to create it and write my CSS there. So yeah, basically just create separate CSS file. The very, yeah, so this is an example of inline styles. So you're writing style and then you write just color and green. So let's try, in our case, I want to, let's say not color, because so color means that we are styling the actual color of text. So color green. Save. If I go to my page, refresh, you can see that this is green now. I can change to background color. Refresh. And now the text is black by default, but the background is green. So this is inline stylings, right? Also, you can write your CSS, as I said, in a head. So to select my element and style it, all I need to do is say that, hey, I want to style p tag and set background color. So let's refresh. Still the same, as you can see. Just to show you that it is working, I'll set to yellow. Save, refresh. It is working. Yeah. So, sorry. This is the head stylings, right? So this is how it looks in head. The basic structure, I want to talk about structure, and again, I would say the vocabulary of CSS. So here we have a selector, the way how we select elements on the page, the way how we, so we target in specific elements. And when I have P here, it will select all P elements. If I have them 1 or 20, doesn't matter. It will find all P elements and make them color green, font weight bold, and background color yellow. This is what will happen. So this is selector. Property is the actual, I would say, the attribute or the property you want to change. So it can be color, font weight, background color, hundreds of them. We have tons of them, really a lot. But this is the whole point. This is a property and this is the value, right? So we have just basically 3 words: selector, property, value. Yeah, and the value is just whatever you put inside. We have specificity, another. I know that it is a lot for one lesson regarding the amount of information, but this is something that we can just briefly cover, and in other lessons we will start developing the idea, and when we start practicing I will talk about that again and again. So yeah, you'll get a chance to ask your questions about this, ask for explanations, and yeah, that should be fine. So specificity means that you can override stylings. So by default, CSS stands for cascading style sheet. That means that if you write P background color yellow here, and then you do the same but set background blue, you might guess that my element becomes blue. And this is because whatever you write below with the same selector will overall, not just the same selector, but with the same specificity, with the same priority, will override the one above. Sorry. Yeah, so it will just overwrite one above. That is why it's cascading style sheet, because it likes cascade. And besides that simple rule, as usual, we have quite a few that will complicate everything. And that means that specificity, for specificity, we have a few things. First, tag name, right? This is tag name means P or whatever name of the tag that you want to select. That has the lowest specificity. So if I have a few P tags, right? And I have P, that will just select all of them. So let me show you, right? But if I add a class, because the next step after the tag name is class, it has higher specificity. And what I mean is that if I add class here, let's say main, and even if I put it above my P, so technically cascading should override. So when I select by class, I use dot. This is important because if you miss dot, it will look for the tag. That is why you want to put dot. That means that you are looking for a class. And do the same and set green. It will find my element and will overwrite it because class has higher specificity. Right? That is why it's overwriting. Even if my P goes after and cascading rule applies, still this just has a higher specificity. And the top level, I would say the most important is IDs. So ID, again, this is like a class. And imagine that you have ID here. I will give ID here just to show you the specificity. I don't know, greet, I don't know, any ID. So we have greet, and again, even if with IDs, you saying that I'm selecting ID by using hash. So when you put hash greet, that means that you're looking for ID greet. And do the same, blue, save, refresh, it overwrites my class, right? So it ignores P, it ignores main class, it overwrites everything. And the only way to overwrite ID is to put important. And that is why I have a nice meme about that. Because why is happening? So when you have ID, you can't add another ID because ID is unique identifier already. So with class, you can have the same class for many elements, right? Because it's class, it represents a group of elements, one or group. It doesn't matter. You can have them in many elements. But with ID, you can't use the same ID on the page twice. It will show you an error, and let me just refresh my page to show you that we have an error. I think okay, so JavaScript will throw you. Because we don't have JavaScript, it doesn't throw you. But you can't have the same ID on the page twice just twice or more. That doesn't work. That is why it has the highest specificity. Also with classes, you can add multiple classes. You have main, you can say title, you can say whatever you want, like kitten class, beautiful class, very semantic, but you got the point. You can have multiple. With IDs, you can't have multiple because ID is already unique selector. That means that this is a highest specificity. This is the way that you can definitely select one element by default, basically. So the only way to redefine ID to override, because this is a problem when you have already I don't know, few hundreds of CSS lines of CSS, or maybe 20 files of CSS, and especially as your project grows, for you it is hard to find. If you start using ID for CSS, it's like a slippery slope. You just going in the wrong direction, because if you used ID for styling and you don't have for any reason you don't have control for that part of CSS, the only way that you can overwrite it is to use important. So even if I'm adding to my P element exclamation important, that will ignore main, that will ignore ID, class, and if I refresh, everything is yellow again. because it's just overwriting everything. It says that this is the most important. And like, I'm strongly recommend you, again, this is the best practice, that nobody use IDs for stylings. If you want to style your elements for CSS, we use tag names and we use classes. So let's say if I have multiple main classes, but I want to select the very first one, I can have something like, let me just show you. I can have something like dot title, right? Because I want to select the title and I want to set pink. So you can concatenate multiple. We will talk about the concatenation and how you can manipulate with classes and selectors and specificity on the next lesson. But this is the whole point. You can play with classes to, ooh, right, sorry, we still have important, that is why. Yeah, so we have pink, right? Again, if you want to style, use tags as a selector or classes. Never use IDs. Never, ever. And again, you should feel ashamed. You should be ashamed if you use important. Remember my words. Because sometimes, and don't take me wrong, sometimes I use important only because I have no control on the code that somebody wrote. And for example, you use some library or package, and we will talk about that later again, like Bootstrap, you might heard about that, and you have no control on their CSS. And that is why you want, and you still want to rewrite it. And that is why you might need to use important. But again, this is very shameful and you don't want to do that. That goes against everything we have in CSS. So yeah, tags and classes for stylings. Yes, so about combining, yeah, I already started. For example, imagine that I have, remove all of this, and I have H1 and P tag, right? Title, here I'll have, yeah, hello, whatever. I can combine my CSS, so let's actually write our CSS in CSS file. Forget about this stuff. One split. Split, right? Yeah. So I can select H1, background color, pink, and I can style my P tag in the same way, right? So if I refresh, I'm selecting them both and I'm setting background to pink. But I don't need to. I don't need to basically use the same, I don't want to repeat myself because it extends my code, it becomes bigger, heavier, takes time to load, and I don't want to do that. What I can do, I can just put comma, space, and the name of the tag, right? So I'm selecting two things. I'm selecting all H1s and I'm selecting all P elements. So now if I refresh, I still have the same output, right? Because I'm selecting two elements in this way. So this is how you can concatenate and combine elements into one selector. Color systems, it's a quick one. For color systems, we you can write pink, but I bet that you don't want to style everything with one shade of pink or whatever. We can have, again, VS Code helps you, but when you hover, it will suggest you RGB, right? Or hex color. So this is hexadecimal color system. And this is the most popular, I would say. Everyone's use hexadecimal colors. It's like just 6 characters, letters and numbers generates the color. And if I start moving, you can see it just changing. So probably you might see that if you want to create these colors that you will memorize, FFF means that you have white, and 000 is black. Some like A4 or DDD is some grayish, but the rest is you can just basically play around and you can select specific color. So this is hexadecimal system. We have HSL, which is hue something, and we just don't use it. I don't know why you might need it, but it exists. You should know. RGB is red, green, blue, right? But you again, nobody using RGB, but you might want to use RGBA, and A stands for alpha channel, which means transparency or opacity. So the fourth number 1 is 100% visible, and 0 is 0% visible. So that means like 0.5, it's 50% transparency or opacity. Yeah. So, or like 0.2. So we can play with this number. It can be something like ridiculous, but normally it's enough one symbol after dot if you want to make it semi-transparent or whatever. So basically for your needs, you will have RGBA and hexadecimal system because hexadecimal doesn't support, okay, they just brought it, but it doesn't support the alpha channel. It looks like they start changing in CSS, so they add in more numbers. But RGBA if you want to make something transparent, and hexadecimal if you want to create just a color. And when you mock up or mocking something and quickly building, and this is what I'm doing, and you already noticed that I'm just typing green because I don't care about color. I just want to highlight something and see what is the shape of it, where the space has been taken, etc. So you just quickly write some colors, some names, pink, I don't know, pink. They have quite a few different colors on P. So yeah, basically you're just playing with colors. Yeah, so this is about our colors, and we have CSS units, which we will talk more on the next lesson. And that will be, yeah, basically we will talk about responsive units and static units. Yes, so the next stop for us is, this is what we have basically. Lesson 2 will be, we will continue with HTML and CSS. And we will talk about the advanced stuff, a bit more advanced, let's say, a bit more about selectors, about different selectors, how you can, basically more information about that. On the lesson 3, we will talk more about CSS again, because CSS is probably infinite, and you can talk forever about it, but we will talk about more fun stuff with CSS that you can do with CSS. And we will do some, we will start some page together, and your homework will be basically finish that page on your own at home. So again, it's not just on your own, it's about doing on your own, asking questions in Slack. We're always happy to help and assist in response to all your questions. Lesson 4 is just 2 hours of code alone. So we will build some page again together. And while I will be building it, I will ask you questions, how to do something. I will explain why I'm doing some stuff, how it works, etc. For lesson 5, we have wireframing. This is where we will talk about the grouping of elements, as I mentioned today, where we will talk about why you want to wrap something into div, how we want to structure the layout, and the actual HTML inside, because it is important. It will help you a lot with your CSS. Lesson 6 is about Flexbox. We will talk about Flexbox and some, yeah, I think it's just Flexbox because it's a lot. So, and if we will have time, we will do, again, we will start another page. We will provide all designs for all pages, so you should be fine with that. Because it is, I think it's nice to build something nice and to see the result that it looks beautiful. So that is why we will provide all designs for every single page. And lesson 6, I believe that will be about parallax, about some keyframes, how to do some basic animation, and CSS grid. Potentially we will cover CSS grid. And yeah, the homework will be another page for you that you can ask again for help even after the course will finish. Why do I have 6 and 6? Have no clue. Yeah, you can ask for help even after the course. We are always in Slack. We have our instructors, we have our ex-students, we have our current students, and we have just a community there. So I bet that you'll get help straight away when you need one. Okay, any questions? Anyone? Come on, we need to talk. Yeah, sure, just me. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Okay. Do websites need to be completed on code? I always have difficulty to fully understand JavaScript, and it sometimes limit me from building a complete page while practicing what I learned and end up making a simple layout. But because it doesn't have much JS, it ends up not completed because it is not professional. Of course, I know it need to. That's beginner. Yeah. So it's not about JavaScript, and this course is not about JavaScript, and how your website looks like is not about JavaScript. The actual representation of your website is CSS. And let me just check quickly my Figma. Maybe I can show all of you the design, examples of the design that we will build. I hope that we have something. Okay, for some reason I don't have an access here, but I just want to show you an example that here, if you go to our website, we have just a very little of JavaScript. This view is just CSS and HTML. So it's built on React, but you can do the same with CSS and HTML. Everything is CSS and HTML. You don't need to have JavaScript. All these links, colors, etc. Here, this is JavaScript. Okay, this section is JavaScript because you need to dynamically have some extra information. But again, that can be achieved with CSS as well. Yeah, all of that is CSS. So when you're saying it's not, by the way, yeah, we don't use jQuery at all because this is too old to be used and to be taught. We just don't want to waste your time on jQuery. So no, HTML and CSS, this is course all about. And again, trust me, you will build a lot of nice websites, not a few nice websites without JavaScript, because you don't really need JavaScript to make something looks nice. Do you recommend jQuery to help understand? No, at all. That will be even more confusing because jQuery is a library for JavaScript. So somebody wrote like a shortcut, let's say, or a bunch of code that you can use, but behind the scene, it's still JavaScript, and it just does everything for you. That is why I strongly recommend, and this is what we're doing on our bootcamp. During the bootcamp, we don't teach any libraries like Bootstrap or jQuery, because it's basically you're not learning. You need to learn how to write JavaScript, the pure JavaScript. But yeah, this is a subject of another talk. And minimal.js could also be good accessibility feature for people browsing with something like NoScript. Again, see that if you, yeah, you can write some JS, but it's not about that. Trust me that in these 7 lessons, you'll see that you actually have a lot of HTML, CSS, and sometimes you'll be surprised what you can do with CSS. And I bet that some of you might think that this is because of JavaScript, but you can do really crazy things with CSS. I actually try to show you maybe CSS CV programmer. I just want to game. Just want to show you how crazy sometimes it can be. Code span. Nah. Games is. I'll find you for Mario game. Wait a second. CSS. CV Mario game code span. Nah, no. I'll find you, because the guy, he was just insane. He created the whole game as his CV just with pure CSS. It's just ridiculous. It is really just insane. So yeah, CSS is very powerful. You just need to learn how to use it. And we will teach you that during this course. Thank you. Thanks everyone. Yeah, so did we get a download working? Did I miss something? I got mine working on the file in the site directory. Yeah, so I sent the link. I sent the link to the GitHub, so you can just download all examples from GitHub. And yeah, any questions, again, Slack is the best place to ask, and we are always there, happy to help. Thank you, and yeah, we will see you next Saturday. Thanks a lot. See you next time.